Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us this morning. We are so grateful you've chosen to connect with us today. My name is Chris DeBacker. I'm one of the regional vice presidents here at the Free Methodist Foundation, also one of today's presenters. We've got so much that we'd like to share with you today. We're going to dive right into it without much more of a delay. We also want to make sure we're setting aside enough time at the end of our webinar today to answer any questions you might have. If you do have questions, we would encourage you anytime throughout the webinar to email those questions to us at webinar, the address is webinar@fmfoundation.org. And again, anytime during the webinar, and we'll try to answer each one of those at the end of our time together. Again, the address is webinar@fmfoundation.org, webinar@fmfoundation.org. Before we start any of our meetings here at the Free Methodist Foundation, we always open with a word of prayer. And I can't think of a better way to start our time together today than to really having a conversation with the Lord to help us focus our hearts, our minds, and our energy to Him. So with that, I'd like to introduce the Vice President of our Estate and Gift Planning Division and also one of our presenters this morning, Tim Burkhart, who will open us with a word of prayer.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just lift up every ministry that is represented here on this webinar, and we just give you praise for them and what you're doing through them, through their lives, in their communities, where they're serving, as they are reaching out in various ways to win people to Christ, to educate them, to serve and to care for people. And dear Lord, help us to relate this information in a way that is very meaningful, very helpful to advance your work in the kingdom, and help us, dear Lord, to be mindful of you at every step along the way here, and be with Bishop Matt as he's getting ready to share. May you just give him the words that would really help us here to sharpen our ministries in a very significant way, and then the materials to follow as well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, good morning, and we're so glad that each of you have joined us, and we have Bishop Matt Thomas who is with us, and to open us and get us charged up and get us going. And Bishop Matt, thanks so much for being with us here this morning. You're taking the time from a busy conference where you're at. I believe you're with the Q conference in the Seattle area, and so again, we're just so grateful that you've taken the time to connect with us and to share with us and give us some good wisdom here this morning.
Well, thanks. It's good to be with all of you here this morning, and grateful for the foundation for doing something like this, a webinar that will provide hopefully some good information on how to assist your local church. Probably one of the things that I was most excited about when I talked to Tim, and I chat with their regional representatives is, of course, we hear the stories that people communicate how the foundation has assisted them and their people in some way. I've always viewed this, and as a pastor for about 35 years, had the opportunity to introduce folks to obviously the short-term type of giving that would assist them and assist the local church and building stewardship, et cetera, but most of that is short-term. And I know that as pastors, we frequently gravitate toward the short term, filling a hole or meeting an immediate need or something in the local church, or trying to make sure that the offerings this week or this month are appropriate for being able to manage and get through the end of the month and possibly the end of the year. I always felt, though, that there needed to be kind of a layered strategy to help people see things in a bigger picture way, long-term development for the use of their spiritual gifts in local church ministry, as well as how to map out their long-term financial plans and giving to the church. So really as a service, it's a twofold thing, a responsibility of the local church to help folks handle and manage their own stewardship issues, and also meet some of the needs of the church, but then also the value add to give them the opportunity to be able to speak into, or have someone speak into their life with regard to mapping out their future. I started providing an opportunity at least once a year to have somebody from the foundation to come in and take a few minutes in the service. And typically it's been like a Sunday afternoon, and perhaps depending on how many appointments, we could set up all day Monday or Tuesday, something like that, to help people with craft out their future plans and all of that. A residual and interesting thing developed when I started doing that. First of those was a deep appreciation for the folks in the church. Felt like we were caring for their whole need, not just kind of a Sunday to Sunday thing. And that we were providing somebody with some expertise and knowledge in the areas of long-term planning. That was, so the morale was pretty high by doing it for the people that participated in it. The second benefit that came from it, which was somewhat of a surprise to me, is the churches that I was serving saw an appreciable rise in the number of people that were making long-term commitments to the church. And then a third benefit that I didn't really think of at the time were the number of people that the whole stewardship idea got on their radar a little bit more boldly. And so I started working with giving in the local church on a weekly basis, on a regular basis. And so it was a very good thing all the way around for the local church, people feeling like they were served, the church ultimately receiving long-term service, and really even the greater awareness on the front end on a weekly basis, a monthly basis. So I'm just strongly advocating to not only all of our leadership, but in the local church, but also with every one of our groups that are associated with the Free Methodist Church, to be engaged with the people that really care about this ministry and really do care about what's going on a local and a national as well as international level. And missions has benefited from this. Local churches have benefited from this. The denomination has benefited from this. And some may not even be aware, but one of the gifts that went into a leadership development fund helped us get to the point where we could employ and service a task force to develop leaders, which eventuated in the hiring of Jason Morris, our credentialing director for the national credentialing process. So there are real-time and appreciable benefits denominationally, locally, internationally, and with the lives of the people in the church for doing this. So I just commend this to you, and thank you, Tim, and the Free Methodist Foundation ministry team for making this available. So I'm going to drop off, but God bless you all, and thank you for being open to the stewardship of the Lord.
Thank you, Bishop Matt, and we look forward to connecting with you just next week in the board administration meetings and experiencing the leadership of our overall church. And thanks for joining with us today and giving us some words of encouragement. And we're just going to actually pick up right on that spot and start to share. And so, Chris, why don't you help us out here?
Yeah, I have the fortune of representing a pretty wide field team, and we've got folks stationed throughout every corner of the United States. And regardless of where you're at, we've got somebody there that's able to serve you. So I would encourage you very much, like Bishop Matt had shared, if you don't know the person who's serving you and you're part of the country, get to know them, because they're fantastic folks who just really want to see your ministry grow and succeed. And I'm going to tell you right now, I want you to buckle up and hang on, because we're going to go through a lot of stuff here in a hurry. And the goal isn't to have you become experts in everything right now, but know that you've got some resources here. If you need to refer back to them, we want you to be able to do that. But we're going to cover a lot of stuff, so hang on. Here we go. When we talk about planning at the Free Methodist Foundation, and specifically estate planning, there's a number of things that we want to incorporate into a plan like that. Number one, we want to make sure that there's some provision for the Lord's work, some provision for those that are less fortunate, and obviously some provision for the people that we love. But today, where we really want to dig down and spend some time is putting some provision in your plan that will allow you to convey your stewardship story, allow you to put some tangible something to your legacy. And that's where we want to spend some time. if you look at this graph, you're going to notice a lot of different pie pieces representing here a number of different ministries. It could be local churches, they could be our human service industries, they could be our Free Methodist educational institutions. I mean, they're wide and varied here, and it really is wide and varied as folks' affiliations and affinities with their ministries. And many of your ministries are represented here. And one of the biggest ways that folks can give and really increase their piece of the pie there is through a simple bequest. And that's simply putting a provision into your will or your trust, into your estate plan, that allows you to name your ministry in some way. It could be a percent of your estate, it could be a fixed amount, maybe it's a specific piece of property, but in some way, in a very, very easy way, remembering ministry in your plan. So really, when you've passed away, you're now leaving up some part of your estate to ministry. And there's a number of reasons why people will do this. They achieve their own charitable purpose. This gives them a lot of flexibility in deciding which ministries they want to give to. Maybe that changes over time. They can always change their mind in doing that. And it just really becomes a great testimony of those things that are really important to you in your life. So that's one of the big ways that we begin to engage with people. Now, one question that some people think of, or maybe they don't voice it necessarily, but maybe some people say, if I'm doing leaving a bequest in my will, does that impact current giving? Are people saying, no, I'm not giving now because I'm leaving a bequest in my will? Tim, can you walk us through some of that and some of that psychology behind that question?
Yeah, Chris, this is one thing that comes up, is that a lot of times people tend to compartmentalize how they look at their giving, or at least even from a leadership perspective, we begin to think that if people are thinking this way, that it may be taking away from our annual giving. And so we wanted to kind of crack the door here. We have some really exciting, actually new research that's come available to us through our networks, some very expensive longitudinal studies that have occurred over time to help us better understand why people actually choose to make a bequest, why people do some of these planned giving things, and is it really the same kind of thing as putting money in the offering plate as a tithe or something like that, and so to help alleviate these fears that we may have periodically, there's certain things that we can do or look at and to try to better educate ourselves. And so I've used this ministry development model graph. I've illustrated a number of different ways over the years, but one of the critical things that we run into as we're working with ministries is that they have to really develop their mission and vision. Many of us work with charities or ministries or observe situations where people are giving maybe just because they think it's the right thing to do, or they know the Bible tells them I need to tithe. They feel more compelled to do that. But in reality, our charitable world has developed a lot in recent history. And so the case for support is something that every ministry needs to fully develop and clearly be able to articulate. Everyone in the pews, everyone in the leadership team needs to be able to give the elevator speech as to why should I give? Why should I get involved in your ministry? What's really unique about you? And so naturally, we process this through the annual giving mode of what we do in our ministries. We all have budgets, hopefully, in the ministries that we're working with. And so we make and break our ministry sometimes even based upon that annual budget. If we're 10% behind this year and we fall short, then next year we may be 10% less than in the way that we propagate our work for the Lord. And so, you can easily see how over time, if we could keep backing off 10% each year or 5% or even 1%, how over time that we can lose a part of what God's calling us to do. And so, if you will, think of the annual fund. It's like shooting up fireworks, kind of like what Bishop was saying. It's a little more temporary than what people are accomplishing with their annual gifts. And so, therefore, we need to be talking more actively, engaging people within our constituency to help them to see how we can sustain this case for support, help accelerate the mission and vision through major gift initiatives and also through planned giving initiatives. These are the two legs, if you will, that help lift that case and help accelerate the ministry that you're engaged in. And so if it's building a new Christian education wing or a gymnasium on your church or the next big wing for Seattle Pacific University, whatever that happens to be, this is the major gift initiative, and there's an incredible amount of vision that goes into that to help lift that case for support. And then also planned giving. People reorient their lives, literally. When they put their plans together, they're thinking, instead of doing this, I'm going to choose to do something more kingdom-oriented. And it's really exciting to be able to work with that. And so we want to crack the door. We want to encourage you guys to be a part of that conversation to help lift that case for support, because it really drives what we do on a daily basis.
Now, the one thing that might be a new term for some folks, Tim, is a planned gift. Can you help us just dig into that a little bit so we know what we're dealing with when we talk about a planned gift?
Exactly. Really, the truest sense within the industry, with the secular industry of planned giving, is almost really any gift. It's when you contemplate the gift and really say, hey, I want to do something with this. I really want it to be significant. And so the amount can really be scalable depending on the circumstance. And sometimes, there's gifts that people make that are gifts of influence. They may not be as large as other gifts. And then there are also, the bigger gifts or the mega gifts that come into various ministries. And, little ideas like matching grants, coming up with people. I was just talking with someone on the phone within the last few days where they said, hey, someone pulled me aside and said, when you get close to the end, I think I can make up the difference. And so I challenged the pastor at that point to say, that's an invitation for a discussion. You should engage with them in such a way that you just say, okay, let's strategize this. What if you made that a matching gift? What are you comfortable doing now that would help us? And we find that, again, matching gifts can be an exceptional way to accelerate an initiative that you have in ministry. That just really lights the fires and gets them going. But there's a number of different ways to do it. Even when someone just steps up and says, I'm going to give the remainder of my IRA, or I'm going to give a portion of my net worth, or I'm going to give a gift that provides income now to my family, but then leaving the remainder to my ministry of choice. And there's very significant tax benefits, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, on doing that type of thing. So it's an extension of our legacy that we're really talking about here. And really, as you can begin to crack the door and see that this, $35,000 we talked about in our little marketing brochure, that is, I've talked to many people, that's kind of a low estimate. And Chris already mentioned that the average church visit, we have $150,000 that's designated to ministry. And so it's just one of those things that it all begins to add up. And so here's the first big takeaway for you for our webinar today, is that people that actually make planned gifts, people that include a charitable beneficiary to their estate plan. Here you see this is a longitudinal study over a 20-year period starting in the early 90s and running up through 2012. And you can see that at the year where the gift is made, where it says mixed, 2 years after that, actually, they're giving nearly doubles. Now, we're not talking about a planned gift. We're talking about the immediate annual fund giving. And we believe the reason for this has to do with a new sense of identity with that ministry, that they are digging deeper into their love and appreciation for that ministry in such a way that as they make a designation through their estate plan or through a planned gift, they are actually becoming much more engaged in that ministry. Even to the extent that we find for many years after, maybe they move away and they've gone to another church. And here's where we're sometimes still holding the line, trying to help keep them connected to your mission, to your vision of your organization. So keep in mind that this is not just an incidental thing that happens now and doesn't happen again, but it tends to move on and it continues on forward.
Yeah, so really, just, I just want to make sure that point is clear. After a person puts a planned gift into their estate plan, after they make a charitable designation, their annual giving actually doubles, research says, which is remarkable.
That's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. And it was really encouraging. We had a feeling that this was happening, and even Bishop Matt alluded to that in our opening session about how that impacted his local church when he was pastoring. But again, we now have the statistics to say that this is in fact true, and it's happening.
Now, do people, here might be the next thing, do people actually just burn through all the money in their estate a lot quicker than they normally would if they have a charitable plan, or a charitable piece in their plan? Because are they actually saying, well, I might as well just go spend it now because it's all going to go to charity when I die? Is that what people are thinking now?
You know, interestingly enough, Chris, is that we all know our family of Free Methodists and our constituency base, and people generally don't change their lifestyles. They're pretty conservative in the way they approach life and what they're doing for not only themselves, but their family and their future. In fact, we find that many times, for instance, on their retirement plans, many are only just taking the minimum distributions from their retirement plans. And we're going to be talking here in a few moments about how to do that and what that all means. But we really find that, in fact, there are many people that are not spending their ministries' inheritances. In fact, here's another part of the same research that suggests that, you know, starting at the same age and wealth, those with a charitable estate plan increase their wealth at double the rate of those without. And so they're not spending it, they're in fact saving more, and it's because of the conservative nature of what is going on here. And so even to take that one step further, many of the people that we run into on a daily basis, they're putting a charitable component in their estate plan only about 5 to 6% when they are, in fact, just going to an attorney on Main Street, USA, and only 5 to 6% of the time they're designating a estate. But you know, our program has been in existence since the 70s, and we have found that over half the time, in fact, people are putting a component of charity ministry into their plans. And so we're really encouraged by that. We know that even based upon these statistics that you're looking at here, that we believe that God has called us very uniquely to do some very exciting things to help advance the kingdom, to engage and work with you guys, which is really key in how we've designed our program and we've designed our plan to make sure that we're working together as a team effort. I'd like to go on further just to explain further about some of the research that was done. In fact, they actually took people and put them in an MRI and asked them questions and watched how their brain responded in various ways. And what they found is that people that make planned gifts evoke the same area of the brain that you use when you look at family albums and when you look at family pictures of you growing up, your life story of how you grew up and the experiences that you had. This is the same area of the brain. It's actually identified here on the left side of the slide as to the places that fire in your brain that evoke a response, which is really interesting in the fact that when a person makes an outright gift or if a person gives to their friends and family, it actually engages a different area of the brain that is related more to memory and emotion. And I should have mentioned in the prior slide, looking at the family pictures, it's how people look at you and it's how you think that people look at you that engages you on a planned gift. But in an area such as an outright gift or working with your family, these are both in a similar area of the brain. And in fact, bequests to your family and friends are in a different place. They engage, again, your memory and your emotion area of the brain, which is, again, kind of an interesting thing to understand that it really is. You know, we've worked with ministries, for instance, who have said, you know, we're not going to talk about planned giving. We're in the middle of this capital campaign. We need to raise X amount of dollars. We don't want to do that. And we say, you know what, you're missing an opportunity. because this is an area where certain people that are going to do this kind of giving, they may still do the other, but it's a really different decision that they're involved in making. And then also just to be a little more liberating in the area of tributes and bequests. It's rare for us to run across a ministry that really empowers people in this area and even talks about it and has conversations. So allowing people to say, hey, this is the thing we do. We put pictures on the wall here. We have a tree where we put people's names in here and we remember them and we honor them. Developing this aspect of your ministry is really, really important. In fact, they say one of the single most important things of cultivating donors and gifts is thanking donors. Many of them feel underthanked, undervalued, underappreciated, and they say you just cannot thank them enough. Doing it, dozens of times is a very intentional strategy that lots of charities are involved in doing. And as a ministry, you should ask yourselves, what is our strategy? How do we thank our donors? How do we enable them to do these types of things in such a way that we are encouraging these types of gifts?
Yeah, and we're kind of shifting gears here a little bit, but I think, again, some more fascinating research. A study was done on Christians who tithe and Christians who do not tithe. So we're taking into account roughly 5,400 Christians and asking them, are you regularly giving 10% of your income to kingdom work? And there's a lot of information here, and you can certainly go back and look at this after the webinar, but I'd encourage you to look down at the bottom of the screen there where it says Christian non-tithers, 57% of those who aren't tithing have an estate plan. And that those Christians who are tithing, 71%, a significant amount more, have an estate plan. And I think it's more research that shows just because we're giving annually, or rather, if in an estate plan, if we're making a bequest gift, that's not taking away from the annual giving. I mean, they really just kind of play off of each other. And, where one goes up, there's a direct relationship with the other.
Chris, let's transition even again. We have a lot of different things that we want to communicate to you, but take us for just a few moments and let's talk a little bit about the traditional work that we've done in the local church and how that's been set up and designated and put together. And we're going to talk about maybe some new changes and some ways that we can even do it better.
Yeah, and I think a number of your ministries have probably benefited from a live visit, or having one of our representatives come to your church or come to your ministry and be able to connect with your donors or potential donors. So we still are in that business. We would really love to be able to do that. And we will provide you, after you give us that invitation, we'll put that on our calendar. We'll then provide you with all the promotional type material that you could possibly use and want, everything from bulletin inserts to appointment sheets, which will allow people to sign up in advance and connect with us, to various videos that you could use to help promote what our ministry is. And then we're available to make a presentation on whatever topic you think would be beneficial for your ministry. Certainly we can bring a number of different topics ourselves, but if you think there's something that we really could speak about that would hit the mark with your group, we are more than happy to do that. And like Tim had mentioned earlier, we found the result of a live visit like this ends up being roughly somewhere in the range of $150,000 that ends up being designated through folks' estate plans to go to ministry. And it's not always the local church. There ends up being a number of different ministries that folks want to remember. Could be their alma mater, could be Free Methodist World Missions, it could be, I mean, you fill in the blank. Any ministries that folks are giving their time and resources to now, they're generally remembering after they pass away as well.
We continue to sustain this, and we believe in it. We believe in it primarily because of the relational aspect of what happens in a live visit. There are a lot of consultant firms similar to us that do work, and they may try to do certain things over the phone or what have you, and those things can have some efficiencies to them. But truly, having that face-to-face experience, working with someone that you know and you trust, really makes a difference in helping to facilitate this process. But we really, though, we feel like we are in 2014, and there are some new technologies, and we're using them today. And so we feel like the virtual visit is a way that whereby we can engage a lot of ministries, and we even have some ministries that are, you know, of such a size that maybe it's not convenient to do it in a traditional sense. And so that's why we've introduced the virtual visit concept. We actually had a webinar back in August, had a really phenomenal success with that. We have one coming up in November, and where we're going to explain at the very end. We have some bulletin inserts that we're going to be emailing to you where you can engage. And again, the real reason we're doing this in this way is that many people have life's events that occur. And if it's going to be a year before Chris is back in the church, or Arnie or one of the representatives is back in the church, if it's going to be a year, then their life event may have already passed, and we have missed that opportunity to really serve them in an effective way. And of course, we're available to drop everything and be there for a life event, but we just want to make it easy for people to engage and develop their plan in a way that is very meaningful for themselves. And so, again, we believe this is another way of educating people and to assist them. And we've also done some very significant other things in recent years. Many of you may be on our e-newsletter, our regular emails that go out of our office to keep people updated with what's going on in Washington with things like the IRA charitable rollover and various giving strategies, things for seniors, things for young people. And so all of those updates that we send out all direct traffic to our fmfgiveplan.org, where people can actually go online, plan their will, get information, get a wills guide, sign up for our e-newsletter. But if they drop down and really explore all the information, it's almost like a virtual Tim Burkhardt or one of us in the office here that could serve you. And here you have a video actually of Chris explaining some of the options with estate planning and how probate works and those types of things. But then specifically, is it any surprise that we're talking about donors and their stories and helping enable them to tell their stories? And so we've actually modeled that on our website. We would encourage you to dig into that a little bit and explore what that might mean and how you might be able to help celebrate some of those donor stories and even help us. We'd be glad to put some of those donor stories right here and to help encourage other ministries that we're engaged in. And then also ultimately the personal planner, where you can dig in with your own individual questions that you might have, the news from Washington, as we mentioned that, various gift options that are there, and then of course to learn about what is a will, what is a trust, what is that all about, and then of course we're going to be giving you a couple illustrations here in a few minutes about how a charitable gift annuity works. But here you can actually go on our website and run a calculation for yourself, and you say, hey, I'm 56 years old. How would that work for me? How would it benefit me? And there's actually an audio-visual presentation that's customized to you, whatever information that you put in there. It's all confidential so that no one's going to be harvesting any data from that or anything like you would maybe think that would happen on a website. Completely secure, confidential, where you're just kind of running scenarios and you're kind of thinking and you're learning and you're dreaming in a given situation. And then of course some sample bequest language. And then I don't want to lose sight of the fact that all of our ministries have people who are professional advisors. They're attorneys, they're CPAs, they are maybe even estate planners themselves, financial planners. And we really embrace the professional advisory community. We resource them in many instances and providing them with all kinds of resources in our back office to further their practice. And in fact, when you jump on this section of the advisory, you can go in and there's an extensive library of information available that you can dig into with your professional advisors and help them to see. And if they're not part of our regular e-newsletter that we have, in fact, we have one devised just for professional advisors. And so if you may be getting our donor version, and we would encourage you to jump on with the professional advisors and help the people that are connected with your ministry to get plugged into this area as well and experience that. So it's just real exciting to be able to network with them and also to work with them. And some of our better areas of service have come through professional advisors who's working with a very significant donor, one of your constituents. And we certainly want to keep the door open to assist them.
Tim, I don't know, have you ever had this conversation with one of your kids before you go into the old toy mart? Lord is my shot. I need to more readily remember Psalm 23 in a case like that. But I think even as adults, we sometimes try to decide, okay, we need to manage our wants with really what is the Lord calling me to do? And I don't think it's really an either or kind of thing. I think if you're wise in the kind of planning that you engage in and the types of tools that you use, I think it can be a both, where you can get some of those things that you want and you need, and also remember the Lord's work. And one of those tools that we want to spend a little bit of time talking about is a charitable gift annuity, or a CGA. And really just some of the high points of that is a charitable gift annuity is going to allow for the person who engages with this, give them fixed payments. So it's going to have a fixed amount of income that they can use to supplement whatever they're doing in their lifetime. They're going to have some fixed guaranteed payments. It's also going to allow them a charitable deduction, which a lot of people can really benefit from, as well as, depending on the kind of asset they use, they could receive part of that income coming back to them in a tax-free way, and a potential bypass of some of the capital gains, again, depending on the kind of asset that you might use to fund this charitable gift annuity. So what we want to do here in the next slide is just compare and contrast two different folks. And Tim, do you want to help us out in looking at that?
Yeah, it's interesting over the years we run into, and especially in the market that we're in right now, that people are investing in their local bank. And for instance, if they're lucky, they're getting a 2% return in that setting. And many times we run across people, they're getting like a 0.5% or a 1%, something like that. And so it's not, for many of our seniors and retired folks, it's a very challenging thing, because they maybe built their plan thinking that they were going to get 5% from now until, eternity. And they're not getting that 5%, or maybe they wanted more than 5%. And so this can be a challenge for people as they're, getting into the twilight years of their retirement and what have you. And so here's just a great analogy to help you to see how comparing the difference between John and Mary, and not to minimize either one of these options. I mean, putting your money where it's at in the local bank or something like that, not putting that down at all, but also just to consider the fact that, could we do better? Is there a more appropriate plan here? And so let's just simply take the similar amounts for both John and for Mary, $10,000 apiece. And they each are going to invest in their respective plans. And we chose very simple numbers so we can all kind of consider this. And that is that at $10,000, 2% a year is $200. That's pretty simple math. In this situation, Mary, she happens to be 75 years old. And so therefore, she, based upon her life expectancy, would earn a 5.8%. It would be fixed. It would never change. It would be locked in essentially for the rest of her life, and that she would receive $580 per year. So right off the bat, you can see a significant difference here. Mary, almost 3 times the income that John is receiving in his situation. In fact, if John wants to get the 580 himself, he's going to be tapping into the principal significantly each year and drawing that investment down. And it would not have the security that Mary would be experiencing here. And then just the reality of a gift. Probably not with John in this situation. It could be. I mean, he could choose to give that principal, but very likely not. And then, of course, it depends on how long Mary lives. But we say approximately, $10,000 could be less, depending on, again, if she lives to be 105, which we would hope that she does. In fact, we quite frequently comment in our office. It seems like our constituency does live very, very long lives, especially when they do these arrangements. And but there are lots of reasons, again, that people do these types of things. But again, the principal remaining for John, of course, is the $10,000. Mary would not have access to her principal in the future, but she would have access to the income and a very significant deduction. John does not receive a deduction. Mary would receive a $4,492 deduction for having set up this type of plan. So you can begin to see, almost 3 times the income, $4,492 back in a charitable deduction, which could be a little over $1,000 back in Mary's pocket if she does her taxes appropriately and if she's able to declare that deduction and use it, as many people can do. So it's exciting to watch the difference about how John applies his plan versus Mary. And of course, we're not encouraging Mary, we're not all Marys, but we think that this could play a small role in an overall plan and where people are headed. And so that's one idea. And Chris, why don't you give us another idea in regards to a gifting idea?
Yeah, and this is really, we'll stay in that $10,000 gift range. Perhaps there's somebody who has an appreciated asset. It could be a stock or a mutual fund, or maybe it's an undivided interest in a piece of real estate. Something that's valued right now at $10,000. You paid your cost basis for that. You paid $2,000 for it. So if you were just to sell that outright, there's going to be an $8,000 gain that's going to be taxed in some way, shape, or form. And there's a lot to this that we're really not going to cover at this point, something that you can dig back down into here.
When you see the slides later.
Once you see the slide. But the ultimate thing that we want you to see here is by making a gift to ministry, your total tax savings, given the amount that you're going to be the tax that you save, and then the bypass of some capital gains tax, you're going to end up saving about $5,500. So the actual cost to you of making a $10,000 gift to ministry ends up being about $4,400.
And what we're really talking about here, Chris, is a gift in kind, right? So it's getting ahead of it. Many times we've run into, as we're traveling about, and people come to us after the fact, and they say, hey, Chris, I got a tax problem here. I sold this. I gave this money that I had, and as a result, I have to pay this tax. Well, what went wrong here? Something's not quite right. Can you help me out with that? And unfortunately, we can't fix it at that point. We can help give them maybe some alternative strategies to assist them, but we do run into this periodically, and as ministries and working together, we have to serve them in a way that it helps them. And in this situation, they can be helped if they are given the proper coaching up front, and just to have that, again, that environment of conversation within the ministry that we do these kind of things. This is what we're about. We want to make it easy for people to follow Jesus. We want to make it easy for people to give and to accelerate our mission, our vision that we're about. And I also want to throw in another slide. Again, these are much more too detailed for the time that we've allotted here, but I wanted just to crack the door. We run into a number of ministries that are acquiring properties, and in many instances, they're taking a retail mentality to acquire those properties. They're not considering the fact that they could do what we call a bargain sale. And this is where you engage with prospective buyer, and again, assuming that you're able to engage with them and help them to see what your mission and your vision is and what you're trying to accomplish for the community to make a difference, which is a key element to this. But in this situation, we're taking a $500,000 piece of property, and the charity is actually acquiring it for $400,000. And the donor is getting a tax benefit for the difference. And the really cool thing about it is the donor actually, or the seller in this situation, donor, they are actually benefiting. They're getting $435,000 after they do their taxes and process the deduction in and this type of thing. So you can begin to see how, in fact, in this situation, your money, as you're looking to acquire this new facility or this new building that you or property you need for a parking lot, as your money is worth more than anyone else's money at the negotiating table. And hopefully then you can engage them in your mission in an even more dramatic way long term. So we just wanted to crack the door on that one so that you could be excited with us and to be able to experience these types of gifts. We see this happening periodically through our offices. We run illustrations similar to the one that you're looking at here, but we customize it for them so that they can really see. And in this situation, it could mean the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars for a ministry. So I think Chris, we're over-delivering on this $35,000 idea. But again, that's part of the whole goal of the webinar is to do just that. Also now we want to talk, kind of continuing on the idea of the giving of the appreciation or the stocks or mutual funds. We work with a growing number of individuals who say, you know what, God has blessed me. I've got these resources. I bought this stock. It was worth, $2 a share. Now it's worth $10 a share. They are now engaging with us in such a way that they say, can we harvest some of that growth, some of that appreciation? We're not quite sure where we want to give at this moment, but we'd like to do something very significant. Could you help us pay our tithe? Could we use some of these resources? And the answer is absolutely. We have a donor advised fund called GuideStream Charitable Gift Fund. It's a separate 501c3 charity that's part of our family of charities here. And we help people process gifts of cash, stock, property in the name of a family. It could also be in the name of a particular ministry or charity or purpose that they have created. It's managed here out of our offices. So not only the original contribution that they make, but the future growth that occurs within that account over time is then directed. They give what we call grant recommendations back to us. For now, or it could even be a letter that's in our file that says, here's the types of things that I want to have happen with this money. And here's my philosophy for giving and the types of things, or even to pass the torch to the children to say, okay, here's the Free Methodist Ministries that we really want to benefit. And so we now engage with the children and challenge them to use these funds in this manner. And we find that, again, enabling people, showing them that this is an option. We pay for a growing number of people their tithe on a monthly basis, where they've sold a business or they've sold a rental property or a mutual fund or stock, and then we are then just direct depositing or directly sending that money to all kinds of various ministries that we serve. The only requirement here is that it has to be to a 501c3 organization, so we can't release money. These are charitable funds. They have to stay charitable. They can't go outside of that box, so to speak. But I think we all understand how that works. We have to be careful not to benefit an individual or a person per se with these types of funds. It has to be a 501c3. And then to take the next step to even say that there's the traditional endowment structure, which we have done for many years here out of the Free Methodist Foundation. John and Mary Smith could engage with us and say, we really believe in sending kids to Christian camping, to our local Christian camp. And so we want to create a fund that does just that. Or we're going to talk about in a few minutes about some other ways of using endowments in some very creative ways. But whatever your passion is, whatever your legacy, whatever you want people to look at you and to remember you as, we can create a fund like this, and it's usually initiated by the family, initiated by the donors to launch these types of things. And again, we'll come back and touch on an idea through International Child Care Ministries as to how they do this kind of thing. We're going to again transition. We got a lot of material here that we're going through, but we're going to start to pull all these ideas together in a very significant way. So we're coming back to putting together the plan and ways that we can put it all together in a meaningful way that maybe helps you to understand the types of things that we do. I think we're all very familiar with what we call an outright gift, where, mine today, theirs tomorrow. People do this today. They do this through their estate plans, where they say, you know what, I want a percentage of this just to simply go to benefit this ministry, and it's done as a part of their estate, or even today. So we understand that concept very, very well. But then there's also a number of similar concepts to what I'm getting ready to explain, where we say, it's not that I don't trust the kids, but it's because of maybe the tax benefits that are afforded to them. They might choose to do what we call a charitable remainder unit trust. This could be, in fact, also a charitable gift annuity that we just explained a few minutes ago. These instruments work in a very similar way. But a unit trust actually has some flexibilities that a charitable gift annuity doesn't have, you can actually pick your percentage. It's not based upon your age only. So you can pick your percentage and say, here's how much I want to receive from now until eternity. We can even put plans in there to benefit the children as well. And it's an exciting thing. But if it's a plan that benefits children, typically we're limited to be able to do that for about 20 years, depending on the ages of the children and where they're at. But it's still a very exciting thing. And here's a really neat thing in the fact that the money that goes into one of these instruments grows tax-free. It's kind of like a charitable IRA, and the fact the money grows tax-free, and then, of course, it's paying an income to the income beneficiary, could be family, and then, of course, they're having to be taxed on that income that they receive, but the actual investment itself is not being taxed. It's growing tax-free. And we all know why we do IRAs. It's because of that acceleration that occurs within the investment, the tax-free earnings that occur. And so it's a real exciting way to really do some significant things to help them, to give them something that you might not have been able to give them otherwise. And then ultimately, again, they're able to designate to their remainder, their ministry of choice, to say, these are the ministries that I want to benefit. And so as a result of that, here's how I want to do that and how I want to make that happen.
And Tim, probably one of the best assets that you could use to fund something like this is an IRA. Like you had mentioned, IRAs are fantastic vehicles for accumulating dollars, but at a certain point, the tax is going to be due on those dollars. So to be able to use an IRA to fund a trust like this is a fantastic idea. And then one other thing we want to chat about here is the potential that the IRA rollover, this charitable IRA rollover law that's kind of been in and out of existence for the last few years, seems like it's gaining some traction again, and it seems that there may be some legislation passed here in the next several weeks that would allow a charitable IRA rollover once again. So kind of hold on tight and really be ready to receive gifts and talk about gifts like this, because there's going to be potential donors in your ministry who are really key and prime for making gifts like this. So I think it's important to keep your ear to the ground, and we'll do our best to kind of keep you up to date with that as well. And
we know by talking with people that people have been tracking along in our e-newsletter in the Washington section, because it talks about this on a frequent basis. So that's the place we would encourage you to look. But if you're ever having a question, give us a call in our offices, and we also have some materials that we could assist you with that talk about how to give from your IRA and those types of things. Let's wrap all these ideas together in just one very simple illustration, hopefully. Let's take someone who maybe has an appreciated business. It could be a rental property that they've had for the last 30 years, and they've been enjoying the income off that rental property, but they've now come to a place where they're saying, you know what, I don't want to keep changing out water heaters and going and fixing things anymore. And I've come to a place in life where, it's been fun to have this, but maybe I can do something else with it. And the reality is selling that type of asset can have some huge tax consequences to the owner. And so usually when we're working with someone like that, they're not in a position where they want to invest. They want to continue to invest that money. They don't want to just take it in cash and put it in the mattress and say, oh, yeah, that's great. I've got this money now. In fact, the tax law really penalizes these individuals that might do something like that. And so what we would encourage you to do is step back from that plan and say, I am going to need a little bit of cash up front. So, maybe a portion of that property could be conveyed in such a way that it comes to me in cash. And then another piece of that could be structured in such a way using like the charitable remainder trust or the charitable gift annuity, where it could be an income for me and my wife, my family, in a very significant way. And again, with all those tax benefits that we just discussed, they would get a charitable deduction for establishing the plan. They would avoid the initial gain for that part of the asset that goes into this type of an instrument. And then ultimately to say, you know what, I'm tithing. I'm given to my local church. I'm given to these ministries that I really am very passionate about. And so let's look ahead the next 3 to 5 to 10 years to say, if I were to pre-fund that and begin to think about what I'm going to be giving, let's use this asset to do that type of thing. and not let's wait until after I sell it to try to figure out a strategy to do what I might want to do that would be kingdom oriented. Again, it's having that conversation up front that is so key. And we many times, even though a person could take a portion of this upon its sale, they could take a portion of this as cash. We can, using the charitable deduction, many times zero out the tax completely in a very strategic way and assisting the family. So it's fun. It really is to work with folks and to see the lights really start to come on to say, you mean I'm not going to pay tax, but I'm going to get something back. And that really starts to get people charged up to see that there is a big difference in the way that, you know, putting a legacy plan together can benefit a family and make a difference.
And I'm guessing some of you right now are, I mean, there's a lot of information here, no question. And maybe some of you personally are asking some of these questions. Certainly the people in your pews, your alums, your friends, your donors, potential donors are asking these questions as well. And I just want to share with you that we have a team of people, a team of men and women, from financial planners to investment folks to estate planners, who can really help you make sense of some of these questions and help your donors make sense of some of these questions. And certainly they're asking these questions as well. And I think the one right at the bottom here, Tim, how do I best for the people in cause? How do I best care for the people and causes that are important to me? Certainly that's a question that people are asking. And I think if you want to, as we close here, just highlight what International Child Care Ministries is doing to help address that question with their donors.
Yeah, we actually selected a ministry here at the conclusion because we really feel like International Child Care Ministries has done it very, very well. And we've had some exceptional meetings with Linda Adams, who leads International Child Care Ministries. And she has just taken a whole new, fresh look. And it's really, it's illustrated itself in a very significant way with their e-newsletter. And, you know, here you have the opening lead article from Linda talking about essentially how this impacts International Child Care Ministries, that it really does make a difference. And some places where you can link to their website, watch a video there. And just one thing I really wanted to focus in on that was really key, and it just happened in the last week as we were meeting with actually a couple donors, but one in particular, is that I was talking with the donor and they mentioned International Child Care Ministries. And so I asked them, I said, hey, did you happen to get the newsletter that came out recently from International Child Care Ministries? And they first said no, they didn't receive that newsletter. And then I said, well, you know, there's kind of a neat article about what you're discussing, an idea here. And there's a neat article in there about Steve and Pat Wilkins. And as soon as I said their name, they said, I remember that. And so then it totally changed the meeting at that moment, because then they absolutely, it's like, we understand that idea. We understand that concept. We have the newsletter right here. This is really exciting. This is something we want to explore. Of course, they're putting their own little twist on what they want to do in their plan that is unique to them. And that's the exciting thing about, again, telling the story. They're starting to tell their story, what's significant about their legacy and what they believe in, what they want to pass on to their children as they're thinking through these types of issues. And it's just like having a good old-fashioned Wednesday evening testimony service, really. Sometimes the meetings we have are just incredibly blessing, at least to us and the folks that we're meeting with, because they're telling their story. They're getting all excited about what God's doing through them, what wants to do through them. And in fact, then we're just simply nodding our heads, say, yeah, we can do that, or helping steer it in a direction that really honors them in maybe even a more significant way than what they were thinking about before.
Yeah, so I think if you've been asleep the whole time, I would encourage you to, if you haven't paid attention up until now, here's a place where you can jump in and say, okay, what do I do? How can I actually apply what we've just been talking about here? And number one, find a way like International Child Care Ministries. It's, obviously it's not going to be the same for each ministry, but find a way to integrate planned giving into your ministry. Make it be your own, because really it's a team effort. It's certainly not just us saying you should do this, but really find a way to own that and make it be something that you can be proud of and get excited about.
Great. And then, of course, planned giving is a team effort, and we can't do this on our own. We really need you guys to be a part of this, and that's again part of the reason for the webinar. Giving people an opportunity to celebrate their story, their life stories. Again, this whole message goes right with what Bishop Roller has been talking about. I know in a lot of the churches that he's been engaged in is helping people learn to tell their stories, bless their legacy for Christ, the types of things that they're trying to do, and then engage. We're scheduling into 2015 for the live church visits. We're doing the virtual church visits, and start now with your plan and 1 year ministry, and talk about it as a leadership team within your ministry. Here's an actual sample of the bulletin insert that we're going to provide to you here at the end of probably the next couple days as a part of participating in this webinar. And we would encourage you to talk with your pastor if you're not a pastor, or as the pastor, make sure that you print up plenty of these. They can be printed on black and white as well as color, and we'll provide them in various sizes so that you can adapt them to your bulletin. But don't wait for a live visit. Begin now, and begin to engage in such a way that that people see that planned giving is a part of your ministry, a part of your focus and what you're trying to accomplish. And of course, you don't have to just talk to me. You can talk with Chris. You can talk with any one of our ministry team. These people are part of your team. They're part of your staff, and we hope that you feel engaged in such a way to relate that in a direct way to the folks within your ministry. We just want to wrap it up to say thank you, and we are so grateful that everyone has joined us here. We've had a number of questions that come in. Unfortunately, we've not been able to necessarily, we actually have addressed a number of the questions that did come in. We've had a few of them. How do I receive gifts of stock and appreciated property? We've touched on that idea, but I will mention though that we have a clearing account here that helps all of our ministries to accomplish that, and also to make sure that the gift is processed right and appropriately, giving them the appropriate forms and that kind of thing, and then we convey the proceeds of that gift directly to ministry, and there is absolutely no fee or charge to do that. And we are just so honored to be able to be a part of your team to do that kind of thing. And here another question: how can I make a lifetime gift to benefit my church? And so we'll be following up with that individual to help them to understand how they can do that kind of thing. And so we just encourage you to keep those emails coming, webinar@fmfoundation.org. And thanks again for everyone that's participated with us today. We so much value the partnership that we share together in the kingdom. We wouldn't exist here at the foundation if it wasn't for everything you guys are doing out there in the trenches. Just the little things you do, reaching across the street to invite your neighbor to church, telling someone special about the school that you graduated from, the senior care facility that's caring for your mom and dad, or that you truly believe in. And again, we're just so honored to be able to be in this role, in this position, to work with you, to serve alongside you in the vineyard. And so blessings to you. Thanks for participating today. Thanks. We're getting a whole bunch of, you guys, I don't think you can see it, but a whole bunch of responses on the instant messaging thing. And we're grateful for all those. And we'll see you in November, and then also in January, and if not much sooner. Thanks again for being a part of the webinar today.
Hey, Ted, are you still there?